everyone, welcome to today's show, and on the newest episode of Red Alert, we have our first ever guest to the show. Ladies and gentlemen, it's our brand new elections analyst, James Stanley, joining us. You're going to see him on election night, but we're giving him a test run. We're introducing him to you, the audience, here today. We're going to go through some of the key elections to talk about in the country today. It's a pleasure to have James here for what's going to be a great little conversation. James, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. All right, James. So you're younger, even though sometimes you don't always act like that. Like, what first got you into following elections?
2014 midterms when I was going to watch to see if the Republicans took control of the Senate, which they further did, and also the House, which they further did, and they got control really there. And that's really the election that I started looking at, midterm elections and every election really had a deeper thought.
Yeah, so the 2014 elections was the big trigger moment for you?
Definitely.
That's when it all started? All right, so that just keep them. We got a young elections project. He just knows everything about elections. It's pretty crazy, and just politics in general. He's not just one elections wonk here, but we do have to talk about some elections today. So, you've been following this stuff. What elections? We'll start with the East Coast. What elections in the tri-state area, includes also the 5-state area, Massachusetts, Maine, the Northeast. What sticks out to you in the Northeast that we should be watching when the results come in on November 6th?
I think the races that we should really be watching are probably Rhode Island gubernatorial race. It'd be actually quite interesting to watch because we're going to have the same candidates from 2014 running. We're going to have Gina Raimondo and I think it's Alan Fung, if I'm correct. These are the same candidates in 2014 running, and so far on the polls that I've been looking at, they're pretty tight race, actually. In Rhode Island, she doesn't really have a great approval rating, but she's pretty good so far there, and she got reelected in the primary pretty well, so it's not like Democrats don't like her, but that will probably be a race to watch. Another race to watch I recommend is the Connecticut gubernatorial election, as the incumbent Daniel Malloy decided not to run again for a third term, which is quite shocking because he actually has a lot of power in that state, but I'm also not shocked because he has a very bad approval rating in that state. It's in the low 30s, if I'm correct. And Ned Lamont, who's going to be running on the Democrat side, I think it's probably the most qualified guy to run because he ran against Joe Lieberman in 2004, 2006 Senate race. Lieberman won actually on a third party, Connecticut for Lieberman. It was actually kind of funny. He won by 10% or something like that. But those are probably the two races I would say to watch. And local New York gubernatorial would probably be interesting to watch, but it's probably going to be an easy race for Cuomo to win, as every New York gubernatorial election is.
Yeah, there really seems to be no major contests in New York, at least on the Senate level, because Kristen Gillibrand's going to be elected really pretty easily. Mm-hmm. But about that Rhode Island race, what are some of the things that we need to know about that? Who are the two candidates? What's interesting about them?
Well, Gina Raimondo is more of she's more of a kind of centrist, tilt left on a lot of issues. She used to be actually really left, but then when she got elected to the governorship, she kind of changed a little bit more moderate because her approval ratings weren't amazing. But she's more of I can compare her probably most likely to she would probably have supported Hillary Clinton in the 2016 elections. That's probably my guess. She was more like a Clintonite, kind of a corporate Democrat, more of let's try to bring, more jobs by cutting taxes for the corporations. But her environmental plan is also rather left. So that's where she gets kind of the more tilt left on her political views. She believes in a lot of offshore wind farms. She was actually one of the first governors to ban offshore drilling off their state. And she has actually plan with the Climate Alliance organization, which is an organization of many states on the East Coast and also across the country. After Trump left the Paris Climate Accord, they joined up and they're making a climate pact. It's I think New York, California, Virginia, North Carolina. They have a lot of states in it. Illinois, I believe, Maryland. I know that's these are states that are going to try to make a climate change plan by 2030 since Trump left the Paris Climate Accord. And Alan Fung, he's the Republican candidate. He is more of like a conservative. He's pro-life. He's
So he's
for
kind of like a business Republican.
oh yes, definitely. He's definitely a business Republican. He is worth a lot of money. He lives in a very rich and expensive town to live in Rhode Island. And his plan for the economy is more of like a Trump plan, like let's cut taxes for the big corporations, the wealthy, and see what could happen. This is trickle down economics. And as we know, that doesn't work. Reagan, it didn't work. Bush Sr. and Jr. didn't work. And Trump is going to try to do it. I don't know if it's going to work, but his first Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which was passed early this year, that's like step one of that plan. But, um, you know, trickle down economics don't work. I mean, the Great Recession in 2008 was basically caused by, Bush thinking that trickle down economics would work, which is the idea that cutting taxes for the ultra wealthy, well, they will then use their extra money that they receive from not paying a lot in taxes, and they will use that money towards helping, like making more jobs possible for people who are poor. But what they realized actually occurred was that they were more saving that money instead of actually putting it back into the economy.
Yeah, that like that's just proof. Like you may say, "Oh, trickle down economics," that's biased to say it doesn't work. But like you're getting to the point, like where we know it's been proven time and time and again, it just does not work. So like you're gonna have to, it's getting to a point where you're just gonna have to call a spade a spade. Before we go down to the southeast, I think is there anything that's catching your eye in New Jersey at all?
Oh yes, I think the Senate race, that's going to be a very good race to watch, actually. Bob Menendez is, I don't know if anyone knows him, but he's the senator who actually was found corrupt in a corruption scandal actually under Obama's attorney general.
But
And
it was a jury, a hung jury, if I remember correctly, right?
yeah, it was hung jury. Like he didn't get convicted, but like they found enough evidence to try to bring a case up, which
Yeah.
I thought that was actually quite interesting to see that
What
happen.
was it he did? For those of you who don't know.
Oh, so he was good friends with a doctor. And what I heard from that was is that the doctor gave him money. So it was basically like money for political favors. So the doctor gave him money, and in exchange for political favors, the doctor gave him, use of a private jet. He brought him down to the Dominican Republic for vacation, and supposedly while they were down in the Dominican Republic, that's also the other part of the scandal, is that Bob Menendez was with prostitutes. That's
Whoa.
the other part of the scandal. Now, I don't know if that's true. I probably do think that it's probably is true, but supposedly according to Menendez, it's not true. But, it's like they always deny the fact that that probably happened. But I don't know. I don't really know who to believe in that case because some people lied and some people have found them lying and some people have found them being truthful. So
Yeah, it's just still either way. It's a very sticky situation. Should have been a Democratic seat, but we
oh,
just
Lisa McCormick definitely should have won that in the primary. She actually got close to winning. I think she got like 37.7%. He got like 63% of the vote, which is pretty close for a Senate primary.
yeah. It's going to be it's definitely really kind of annoying me when Bob Menendez got through because he's just like I don't know. Do you think are we going to see Bob Menendez pull through here or Bob Hoogan, who's the opponent on the Republican side?
I think Menendez is probably going to win just because it's almost sort of like New York. But you know what? You really never know with a state like New Jersey because New Jersey does have a pretty big conservative population, especially in their northwestern part of the state and their southwestern part and the southeastern part. These areas of New Jersey have a very high conservative population. Now, that matters. What could happen is if, people in Newark and people in the big urban cities don't go out and vote, which, I don't really know if they will, but they might, because I know this year that we do have a Newark mayoral election, so Newark might have a big turnout, which might push Menendez over the top. But if Newark does not have a big turnout, then I will highly see the fact that Bob Hugin could easily win this race and also he might even win some Democrats over because he's a moderate. He's pro-choice, he's pro-marriage equality. He's against the health care bill that they were trying to repeal. He's for Obamacare, but he's not for the Repeal and Replace Act that we're trying to do. He said the Tax and Cut Jobs Act was good, but they could have had better, things in it to not make the tax deductibles, not a thing anymore in like states like New York, New Jersey, all the blue states really, like even California and Oregon are getting struggling with the SALT deductions that they got rid of in that tax code
Yeah.
bill.
Yeah, that could be interesting. Like, but anything on the House races, like just in the states that we covered so far,
Oh yes,
that we're
oh
watching
yes,
here.
definitely. Um, I know that there's a lady, Cheryl, for Congress. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I
Mikey
think it's Mikey
Sherrill,
Sherrill. There we are. Yeah, Mikey Sherrill. Yeah, I saw a commercial for her the other day. I think she's running NJ03, if I'm correct. Andy Kim is also running against. He's not an incumbent. Um, Andy Kim is running against a Republican. I'm trying to remember his name. I think he's a businessman. Andy Kim was a former Obama official aide in the administration for Obama, and I think that that's going to be also a good race to watch with Andy Kim because so far the polls are actually showing like a very tight race. The most recent poll that I found today was by New York Times, which had his opponent. I'm trying to remember his name, but I forgot. Had him up by 1%, which they was in the margin of error. Obviously, the margin of error for that poll was 4.5%. But just looking at that race might be an interesting race to watch.
Yeah, so that's Tom MacArthur is the Republican Party guy in that seat
Yeah,
in District 3.
District 3, yeah.
So he's challenging and he's challenging Tom MacArthur, which could be pretty interesting. And I mean, again, any seat that the Democrats are challenging Republicans on could be very interesting. And it's going to be very interesting to see if the Democrats can really turn out some of these seats. Like, these are seats that are not everyone's like looking at, not everyone's paying attention to, but they could be big in determining how much majority, if the Democrats do take a majority back in the House, how much will it be? Will it be like a 60 seat majority, or will it be like a 40-30 seat majority?
I'm probably guessing maybe around. Honestly, the majority for the Democrats is going to be harder than I think, actually, because when I was researching the other day about a lot of races in the that are thinking about going Democrat, they've actually found a lot of instances where that might not be the case. I mean, a lot of Democrats are outpacing Republicans definitely about the funding wise by not big corporations donating; it's all grassroots organizations. I think the Democrats probably will take control of the House. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I think probably they're going to have a majority of probably 20 to 30 seats. They might get 40. I mean, it really matters on how many people really go out and vote, the outcome of who they, if people are actually happy about their candidates, because, I might like Andy Kim, but people in NJ03 might be like, oh, I don't really like this guy. He might be too liberal for this, district.
Yeah.
But it really matters about also who comes out and votes, because, if we have the same people who came out and voted in 2016, that might not really look good for the Democrats, first off, because a lot of Democrats didn't even go out and vote in 2016. And but I think this year the Democrats are pretty fired up, I would have to say. So I think that the Democrats definitely will take control of the House. My prediction is probably 20 to 30 seats. 40 seats could probably be, in my opinion, the max if they get a lot of people to come out and vote, especially in states like California, where they have a lot of toss-up districts. And shockingly enough, Texas has a lot of toss-up districts as well.
Yeah, we'll get to Texas. We will get to Texas pretty soon when we do the middle of the country and central south part. But what I want to do now is, this is probably just from talking to you like recently. Like, we know I want you to give the overview of everything going on in the southeast of the country, like states like Georgia, Florida. Because I know Stacey Abrams and some races you're very interested in Florida. So why don't you just go ahead, give us like the regional preview there, if you don't mind.
Sure, and in Florida, this year we got the gubernatorial, the senatorial, and we also got all the House of Representatives going up to vote. This year, the gubernatorial is actually going to be a really good race, I think, to watch, because we're going to have a drastic change in Florida if we have Andrew Gillum winning. That would be, in my opinion, very good if we have him win, because Florida is a struggling state in a lot of points of view. They have a pretty bad schooling down there. Their government is pretty overrun with a lot of corruption. Their incumbent governor, Rick Scott, is actually, shockingly enough, running for Senate again. Running for Senate. He did try to run for Marco Rubio's seat in, I think it was 2016, but he backed out of it after Marco Rubio announced that he was going to rerun. But Rick Scott's running against the incumbent Bill Nelson, and he's, I think, probably most likely going to win. But I think that it's going to be probably a tough race for Bill, as the polls are probably showing that. But I think that it's going to be probably for Bill Nelson. I think it's probably most likely going to win.
All right, so we got Bill Nelson here, Andrew Gillum. Like, those are the two people in Florida. Is there anything else going on? Like, maybe because I know the governor's race. What's going on in Georgia? What's going on with Stacey Abrams and Brian Kemp? Because we earlier in our first ever episode was on voter suppression in Georgia. So if you how's that? What's the update on that? How's that going?
Looking at our most recent poll, I think that Stacey Abrams actually is going to have a really good chance of winning. For a state like Georgia, again, this is like a state that like people are like, wow, really? Like, this actually might go Democrat. This state's actually looking pretty good for Stacey Abrams. I mean, look, she's a progressive, and it seems like a lot of people are being like